Hi, today I'm going to show you how to put together the pickup truck from Simply Crafty SVGs. And first we'll just jump right in, start with this big piece, which is the bottom and sides of the truck. And here's the windshield, the top and the back of the truck, of the actual cab. And one thing, we want to fold all those tabs. If this is going too fast, you can always pause the video. And then the one thing you can do is also curve out that front windshield by just curling it. If you want it to bow out, but I didn't do that. But some people might want to do that. So the way we want to attach this is we're going to attach one side at a time, starting from the front windshield tab. We're going to attach that one to the inside, and the only reason I'm doing on the inside, we want to match up that tab fold to the edge carefully. Just take your time. Reason we're doing it because we don't have a panel in the front and it'll be visible. We don't want to see that tab. You'll notice it's a little bit longer than the tab is, and that's just so that goes below the hood. As the hood's not attached, it just kind of curves over it. Just makes it easier to put together. It's hard to get your fingers in there to attach with all the curves. So you won't see that. The next thing is to make sure that you have the tabs out, and make sure to do that for the next steps. And what we'll do is we'll glue these tabs to the outside, which is much easier than the inside, but make sure it's good and dry, that first one, before you continue. So you'll just fold it over, making sure that that edge, top edge, sits in the tab fold. And you can apply pressure. What's nice with these open windows is you can apply pressure from within. And just kind of press against it lightly. Just make sure you don't use too much glue as well. Then we'll do that last one on the back. We're not going to worry about the one on the back, the bottom piece. Not quite yet. We'll do that last. So don't worry about after you get this back window tab on, we're going to continue to the next side. And just make sure you get them as flush as possible. There is a panel that will be hiding that, but we want to get it flush so the panels lay flat. One thing I always say is make sure you have I got glue on my fingers, make sure you have a little wet paper towel or cloth nearby so you can use that to wipe the excess glue off your hands or any place it might get on your design. I usually have a wet paper towel handy. So again, you want to reach in, make sure the tab is nice and secure before you glue the other two tabs. One thing I didn't do here is to flip them out before I attach that first tab. That makes it much easier if they're out already. But I like to pre-fold all my tabs so they're easy to fold down. So that is a little tip. Just make sure when you have, especially the AC cardstock 80-pound weight or higher, it's just easier to pre-fold everything on the score lines so they have a nice crisp fold. And if that bottom part's in your way, you can always kind of fold it out a little bit. Kind of like what I did. It moves easily. And it's the reason we don't want to attach it or anything yet, so it could move freely while we were attaching these tabs. And then I wanted to make it easier so you knew where to attach this. So we have a little slot at the bottom, and you're just going to pop that tab through the slot and either glue it, I think it's to the left, left when we're looking at it right now, but glue it down, make sure that you're folded on that the actual score line, and then just apply pressure from within. What's that doing is just making sure it's in the correct placement rather than having to guess. And then we can apply pressure from the top, just make sure it's good and dry. And then if you can see I have two more tabs that fold in. So we just want to put a little bit of glue. You don't have to put a lot. You just want to make sure you put a little glue on it. We're just doing it to set it in place. I'm going to use my fine tip applicator bottle. So I just did a fine, it's hard to see, but I just did a fine line. And then applied pressure by reaching in. This is why we did this part first, so you could reach in easily with your hands in the back windows, and we'll do the same on the other side. Now you don't have to use much glue, we just want to place it. So you don't want to move it, don't move it a lot, just let it naturally fall in place. Because there's really no function to have a solid wall there or a solid piece there, but visually it makes a difference. So there you go, that's what it looks like. So the next thing we're going to do is to build the hood piece. But first we want to fold it on the score lines. And these, you're kind of looking at the hood from front to back when I first started. But those I'm doing both ways, and the reason why I'm folding it both ways, I'll go with the natural score for those end pieces and then back, and you can see I'm just keep on folding carefully on the score lines. But those other two pieces we're going to glue something on, so we wanted it to be folded up a little bit. So there, once you get it folded, I just kind of curl it with my fingers a little bit to make it more pliable, and so I can get it more round looking. It's easier with the scores. I could have taken out the score lines and just did it naturally, but it makes it much more difficult. So I got the tabs all ready to glue. But before we do that, we want to put together the front, I guess they're called tire wells, I would say. So you want to score it as shown, or I should say fold it on the score lines as shown. And then on this part, you want to kind of curl it, because I kind of want it to be a little bit rounded. Be careful on that one on the bottom as much. Do the top one to curl it. I curled that bottom one and it pulled out a little bit too much for me. So, and then pull down those tabs. So just make sure you fold both of them like that. And the place I'm talking about, just to clarify for the curling, is the big piece with the small tabs right there. That's the one mainly you want to kind of rub it, or burnish it, I guess some people call it, to kind of help curve it a little bit. Not as much the bottom part as the top part. I know I'm showing you that, but I'm telling you different. And then we're going to go ahead, and you see this little tab here? We're going to add glue to that little triangular tab, and then line up the edge of that side to the tab fold, and then you want to hold it. You want to hold it until it's set, and make sure it's good and set. One thing I didn't tell you is that this one too is going to fold like this, because it's the way that you kind of want it to fold down with the natural score, and then we'll fold it up, and you'll see it's just the way we glue it. So before you get started, you can fold it up before you glue this piece. So again, we're just putting together these tire wells for the front of the car first, and then we'll attach it to the hood. Now we'll take the hood piece, the large hood piece, and make sure that those small tabs are in the front with those other tabs on the hood. You'll line up. We're going to glue that tire well edge to the long tab. Again, you'll know which way it goes on. So for this tab right here, you want to make sure that those small tabs are facing the same way as the tabs on the hood. So that larger tab on the right hand side there that you see will glue to the inside of the cab. And then we'll repeat it on the other side. Just make sure you line it up properly, the length of the tab. And then just make sure it's good and dry. You want to make sure that that edge really meets that tab fold. And be careful with the glue leakage. If you do, just make sure you don't want it showing, because it will show. And there's the hood piece. So now we're going to add that front piece. So I want you to just curl that little piece, fold it over. You're just burnishing it, just instead of having score marks, we just have it curved a little bit. And then we'll start gluing it, starting with that large tab on the left. So add glue to that first tab. We're going to anchor it, and we're going to line that edge up. And you can make sure it's lined up. You can kind of run your finger across it to make sure that it's lined up properly. You can even fold it up like that and apply pressure. And once you have that anchored, we're going to glue a couple tabs at a time until we have that whole front panel attached. It does get tricky at points, so be patient and go slow. And if you need to glue only 2 tabs at a time, do that until you're comfortable. I happen to be able to do all those little tabs at a time, but you see that I'm applying pressure on each tab and lining it up. So you're lining up the edge to make it kind of a circular edge. But you want to make sure it's good and dry before you go on to the next section. So if you're having trouble with that, you find just start with a couple tabs, like 2 tabs at a time, and then add glue. And this is how you can get to the tabs easily after you start gluing. Just flip it upside down. And a fine tip applicator always helps, but you can go ahead and add glue to the tabs that way. And this is a little bit weird right here. It's a little bit strangely shaped. So again, get it comfortable in your hand. As you see, I had to flip it over. Sometimes that's why you only do a couple tabs at a time, because you're not quite sure how your hand's going to fit in. I'm very right-handed, so I had to see where I could get the most pressure and how I could line it up to best. And for me, my right hand is better for pressure inside. It's better for applying pressure inside. The left hand, I should say. So I kind of jumped there, so that kind of threw me off a little bit. And then we'll just continue. So on that little front middle piece, maybe 3 at a time, 2 to 3 at a time is good. But it gets a little dicey. Just kind of be patient with yourself. And you can see how I'm just pushing it in slightly to get the right shape. And then you just want to make sure this section's well glued. And this is the last part, make sure those tabs are in. It came apart slightly, so I wasn't paying attention. But make sure that's good and dry before you glue the next tabs, which is way easier than that middle part. So once you get through the first 2 parts, it gets easier. If you're really, really new to 3D paper craft, this is probably not the easiest thing to start with. So give yourself a break if you're having some difficulty with it. It'll come to you. It just takes practice. So you can see I'm just doing the little tabs again. Be careful, like I said, know how much glue you can use so it doesn't show through the paper. And then drop your paper like I do. I drop a lot of things. If you watch my videos, you'll see things drop, thrown around, come across the desk. It's just part of crafting. So there you go. I got that last tab in place. And so that's the hood we're going to attach to the actual cab or the body. So you see those other tabs I was talking about? We're going to add glue to them. We're going to do it one at a time. We're going to slide it in. So it's going to slide right here under the windshield. Just slide it in there and make sure that it's flush with that edge, the cab edge. Once it's flush, go ahead and just get your fingers in underneath on the right from the hood section, and you can get in there from within the window. And once it's nice and secure, you can do the other side. So just, that'll be harder than the first one. You're just going to kind of bend it down a little bit. That's the wonders of paper, that it actually will move for you. But make sure you get it pushed in enough so that edge is lined up with the fold, the inside fold. And then now you have the hood. Now I told you we're not going to attach the hood any other way. But if you did curve that windshield out a little bit, you wouldn't have as much of a gap. But it really isn't horrible, and it makes it way easier to put together with all the curves. So next we're going to take that tab, the end tab that's underneath the hood, and line it up to the edge of the bottom part. Now it's a little tricky. What my tip is to use really strong double-sided tape and not glue. And then you can reach in. You could use glue, but the tape grabs much quicker. Just be patient in the part too. So it's getting better now that you're past all the hardest part. But we're going to do now the back tire wells. I hope I'm saying the right term. I think that's what they're called. But you can see I'm folding it. I'm folding it on the score lines, and I'm folding those tabs kind of naturally with, I should say it's a mountain fold, and then I'm folding it back to valley fold. If you know that terminology. Mountain is just down, valley is kind of like a depressed fold. Mountain's up, the fold comes up, and the valley, the fold goes down. Alright, so these are really teeny tabs. So you're going to glue that side to one tab at a time. Now they're really small. I can't get them much bigger because of how that part goes together. But you want to hold them good and long enough for your glue to set. Same thing on the other side. I'm just going to fold it up, line up that edge with the fold. So I'm getting that one tab first with my little wet paper towel, and then the second one. And that's what it looks like. We're going to do the same for the second one. The biggest thing here is just being patient enough to hold it long enough and having the right glue. So I use the Scotch Quick Dry glue, and it does dry quickly, sometimes too quickly for me. When I want something like this, I do that because it does adhere. Like, I have to hold it maybe a second, like 2 seconds per tab normally. It depends on how much force is on it. But these are smaller, so it does take longer to hold. Then once we're done with these, we'll attach them to the back of the truck. So the way you know how it goes are the slant goes in the back. So with these tabs, make sure that you see the slanted portions in the back, and that's how you know how to set which one goes on which side. So we'll add glue to that top tab, and that's that. And we're going to, in that hole there, you're going to line up the edge, the top edge, to the tab fold. Make sure that you fold in the other side tabs. So it's attached, sorry about that. Now it's attached by that top tab, so we're going to add glue to the two other tabs and fold it to attach to the inside of the bed section. So when you're inserting the second one, just make sure they're kind of fold forward, but you kind of want to make them pliable. The reason why we're folding them forward is to make them pliable and easy to attach. So the second one, same thing, just add glue to the top tab. And then we're going to anchor it with that top tab. Fold in those little side tabs first. And I hope that makes sense. A lot of when I'm pulling the tabs back and forth, I'm trying to just make it more pliable for you to be able to glue it to the inside of the truck. As with everything, just make sure they're nice and secure before you go on to the next step. And I know you can barely see that, but I'm just gluing that last tab. And I do a lot of flipping around. It's hard for me doing it on camera, but I have to, when I'm doing it just on my own, I do flip it either way just to get my hands in there. You do have to rearrange it for how you're used to holding things. So now we're going to attach the back gate, and we're just going to line up we're going to glue that tab on the bottom, but we're going to line up that edge, the back edge of the truck, to the fold. It's a little bit difficult. You could use double-sided score tape too. That would be a good use, but you just have to make sure it's in the right place before you push down. That's why I don't use tape sometimes, because the glue gives me a little give, so I can adjust it before it dries. And then if you didn't want to put it in the back for some reason, I don't have any sides, but you could just glue it that way. That's the reason I have those tabs on the back, just for an option if somebody wanted to put something in there. So this is going to be the bed portion. And that's how it'll go in. So we're going to glue that together so we can put that in the truck. One thing is, if you're using textured paper, you could cut this upside down, but what I did was just fold the opposite way of the scores, because I wanted the texture sides, because I had textured paper for those folded over rails for the bed. So this is just a simple box. This is like you just want to glue those corners. So you can just do that on all four corners. Now really quickly, while I'm doing this, I just want to explain that you can glue in this bed, or you can just have it removable. It's up to you. I will show you how to glue it in, because most people are not going to want it removable, because you still have those holes in the tire wells in the back. I mean, you could always put 2 panels of paper too if you wanted it just the way it was without making this piece. But there are options. I'm sure there's lots of crafters out there that will figure out a way to dissect that back, or dissect any portion of this. And I welcome that, because I did that too before I started designing my own. That's how you get the curiosity and learn. So once we have this together, I'm going to show you, so you have those little rails, how it folds down to make the rails on the side, and then you can just fold it up and glue it. So I just added glue a little bit to the tops and backs, but the biggest thing you want to do if you're going to attach it like this, make sure it's set all the way to the bottom, push it all the way down, and then you can apply pressure against the sides that you have a little glue just to attach it. You don't have to put a lot. You just want to set it in there to make sure it's flush, but make sure it's flush to the bottom and the back before you apply pressure. That was Surrey, by the way. She decided to have a conversation with us. Had my phone on, but I guess it thought I said Surrey. So these these may seem pointless, but I have these 2 tabs that I'm going to attach on the back. And again, that's just an option. I was going to take them off, but it kind of creates a nice fold around the corner and keeps it together. But that really was if you weren't going to use the bed part. But it makes it nice and sturdy back there. And then you can fold up the gate and glue it. And even this part, I think double-sided, the really strong double-sided tape would work really well for this application. Or do what I did, which is put it on its side and apply pressure on the back. So next we're going to put together the tires. So we have all these pieces. These are the edges of the wheels or tires, I should say. So we're going to burnish them or rub them to make them curl a little bit. And we're going to attach it, the other end, to that tab. So just matching up that edge with the tab fold. Applying pressure until it's nice and secure. And then we can go ahead and fold in all those tabs so we can glue in the first panel. So the way that I do this is I will fold them in and then add glue to all the tabs. And then we're going to put the one with the notch in it. We're going to place it in and apply pressure to glue those tabs on. It's just an easy thing for circular items. And we'll have another panel to cover them. So you can try to add all the glue to the tabs all at once like me, or if you have to do half and half, it's okay. You can do half and then flip it over and do the rest. So I did all of them, and when you put it in the notch, you might want to make sure that the notch is perpendicular to that little end piece that you glued on the side. The reason I say it, there's a little indentation at the end, and you can see what it looks like on the other side. So up there, you see there, that indentation? That's why we want to change it or turn it around, put it in the way we want, because when we're going to use that little notch to put an axle in, and a set of 2 tires. Each set of 2 will have 1 axle. And we want to make sure, if you want that notch to be inside underneath the truck, then you want to make sure that you make sure the notch is, I gotta say perpendicular. Not when you're looking at it and you want that little thing on the edge at the top, then you want the notch to be kind of lengthwise vertical, horizontal. Make sure I'm saying the right word. Hope I'm making sense. So we're just going to go ahead and finish up these 2 remaining tires, and we'll go on to the next step. So now that we have the tires started, we're going to work on the axles. So this is where the tires will be attached to either end. So you're just going to fold these pieces on the score lines as shown. I know it's kind of hard to see because it's black, We want to get them nice and folded. Had a little glue on my mat. And then what we'll do is fold it over, and there's one side that doesn't have a tab. We're going to add some little, this is not score tape, but it's similar to score tape, really strong double-sided sticky tape. Instead of glue, this is easier to close something this small, especially if you can't get a lot of pressure behind a tab. So I'm just going to add it to that inside part of that last piece without, or side without a tab. Trim it off a little bit, and then we'll take off the other protective side of the tape. And then we'll fold it over, just making sure that that edge lines up to the fold, the inside fold. And then you can use something like a wooden chopstick to apply pressure, but usually with this double-sided tape it's not necessary. And go ahead and continue with the second axle. You see there's tabs on the edge. What those tabs are for really are to attach the tires. So once we're done, we'll go on to that next step. So again, you can see this is a little bit better light. I'm going to cut off a little piece of that double-sided tape, really strong tape. Looks like you can see the brand right there if you're curious. I got this as a gift, so, but it works really well. Like really well. So anyways, there you go. We have the second axle completed. So now we're ready to attach the tire pieces that we started and created, so you can see how they're going to go. And we're just going to slot those tabs through, and we're going to fold them back and glue them on the front of the tire. So they're going to be open-ended tires or wheels. You won't see the inside, obviously. So to make it easier, it's easy to fold back and forth on that fold. So it would just pliable, to make it more pliable so it'll bend back easily once you put it through the slot. So you can add it through the slot. And what I'd like to do is to anchor one tab first. So I'm taking one of the larger tabs, adding glue to it, and then folding it back and applying pressure to adhere it to the front of the tire. And just make sure that it's really folding on the actual score line, because sometimes you don't have it in all the way, and you'll fold it and it's still kind of out. So it'll be kind of funny if it won't really fit properly on the truck. Then you'll go ahead and glue the 3 remaining tabs similarly until they're secured or adhered, I should say. And you see a lot of glue on the top a little bit. Don't worry too much because you'll have a panel that covers that. That's how you attach it. So the same thing with the second one. So you'll do this for all 4 tires on the 2 axles. Again, just attaching one first and then securing the rest. One thing, if it's a little crooked too, after you glue it on, if it's a little crooked, then you can kind of adjust it a little bit as you go. Again, the benefits of working with paper is that it does bend a little bit. If you need it to bend a little bit this way or that way, or if it looks crooked, you can kind of not bend it hard, but just slightly bend it. That makes sense. So that's the first set, and then we'll continue. We'll show you, you can just watch as I put together the second set. So now we're just going to add the panels, the solid panels. So if you want the texture facing out, if you have textured paper, you don't need to put glue in the middle because there's a big hole. So go ahead and line it up on the end. It's going to bow out just a little bit, but the way to stop that is to really apply pressure. So I'm flipping it over. You can't see straight away because obviously you can see the end, but I'm putting pressure around the edges. So the glue gets around the edges and it can make it more flush. And even if there's a little glue that escapes on the edge, you can always wipe that away. So you'll want to do that for all 4 tires. So I added on the panel first, but you can always put it on the actual tire first. But you just want to make sure it's lined up, the edges are lined up before you flip it over and apply pressure. Today I was having some issues with my glue remnants. I washed my mat, but for some reason I had little glue particles on it. And you can see I'm just going to use a little wet paper towel to get away some of the excess glue. It will dry clear. The glue that I'm using will dry clear. So now I'm only showing you one set of tires. So you have to do the same thing on both. So go ahead and add this middle piece. I'm kind of using this was an adhesive metallic paper. It's like almost like vinyl, but it's not vinyl. So just center this piece. And then we have a little white wall that will glue around this. So the same thing as the larger panel. You want to place it carefully so it's centered, and then you'll flip it over and apply pressure to adhere it. Just to make sure it doesn't flip up on the edges. It'll help flatten it. Just be careful with glue leakage. Don't get too much glue on those little white walls so it doesn't leak in the middle or the sides. Especially if you've used metallics. Metallics are hard to clean if you leak a little glue on them. They're just never the same. So just make sure you do that. I'm showing 2 tires, but you want to do that on all 4. I'm not showing you the other 2. And now this next step is putting the large panel on the bottom if you don't want to see the tabs. Now I forgot to put the step sides on first. So if you don't want those tabs showing, you want to put those on first. But I can't go backwards, obviously, if I've already done it. But basically, you will just glue this on before you put the tires on. So I just add glue very lightly along the entire panel. And then it's a little bit smaller than the bottom, but it will hide all those tabs, the exposed tabs, if you really care. But you do want to do it before you put the tires on. But if you don't want the step side, it just has one little tab. It's up to you whether that really bothers you or not. It doesn't make a huge difference. I'm just letting you know, as people might notice that when they get to the end. They're like, why did I put this panel on when I have a step side? So at least I'll note that. So you're just rubbing it lightly, hopefully without something in your hand. I just picked up a chopstick and couldn't let go. So then we can place the tires. So I'm just going to place them. I didn't put any lines on it. You want to place them and kind of look to see if they're in a good place for you. And then once you have them placed, I would use a pencil just to lightly mark one edge so you know where to place it. Otherwise, you know, if you just do it on the fly, you may not get it where you want. So I'm using that really strong double-sided adhesive again on one of the wider flat ends. You don't want to attach it to the skinny section. And then carefully you want to line it up with the little pencil mark. And if you're worried about it, if you're using double-sided tape, for a second it doesn't just adhere all of a sudden for this one. Mine's not that strong. Then once I get it set, I just applied a little pressure. I did have to reset one of the tires after this, and it was easy to get up with adhesive remover. I didn't like the placement. So just make sure you kind of flip it up. I was flipping it over so the little pointy parts were showing on the other side of the tire. That bowed out a little bit because I curled it too much. So I'm showing you how particular I was with the placement, and then kind of looking from the sides to see where I wanted it. Then again, just mark it and then add the double-side tape. And then we can adhere it. I don't know if you've ever used a product I use a lot. I use glue, mostly wet glue, and this doesn't work on wet glue, but it works on adhesive like this. It's called Undo. It's a little chemical. It's kind of stinky. It smells like it's petroleum, essentially, unfortunately, but it will allow the adhesive to, it'll allow you to take off a piece that you've already glued on with adhesive. It can't be liquid glues. So it is a handy tool. Some states have banned it, by the way. I'm just letting you know. Anyways, there you go. The tires. And now we're going to piece together the grill piece. You see that little rounded piece on the top, in the middle. We're just going to center it. And if you do use, I said it earlier, you're using metallic papers, be careful with glue because it's hard to get off. And then I just used double sticky foam tape to pop those front headlights out a little bit. And these are the back lights. So there's two pieces, and I'm going to put them together, and it's just for strength. So make sure you line them up. And you're lining the opposite pieces correctly. They should line up perfectly. And there'll be a little cut line so where you can fold. I don't have a score, but it acts like a score. It's a cutout. It's just a little cut that will indicates where you should fold it. We're going to use that when we adhere it to the panel. But for strength purposes, it's probably the flimsiest part on the whole truck. So you want to be careful with these pieces, especially if you give it to somebody. You don't want to have somebody could easily tear it off. So these are the handles, and we're gonna they're really small, but you can see there's two layers to them just to give them a little bit more dimension. And there I got glue on the metallics. If you want to omit this, you can always add a 3D something dimensional. I don't know if anybody still uses fascinators, but that would be a good application of the fascinators, like a stapler. I don't even know if they still sell it, but I have a lot of them still. But they look like little handles. So we're just piecing these together so we don't have to do it later. And I had to cut out 4 of these. You may not need them. But if you're using a metallic paper, usually it's not double-sided. So I wanted you to have the ability to match them up. If you do have like a really thick cardstock you're using, then you only need 1 set of these. So it's really not necessary to glue them together. But you can if you want to for strength purposes. But I wanted metallic on both sides for this. So I just figured I would include it in the file. This is a really small piece, so if you did cut an extra one, you didn't need it, and you felt it was strong enough, then you're not wasting much paper. And again, this has a cut just like the other one, which will fold to attach to a door panel. I'm using that so I don't get I had glue on my fingers just in case. Little tip. So here I'm going to fold them, pre-fold them there. So they're ready to attach to the panels. So now we just have to add those red portions of the backlight. So there's a big piece and then just kind of a layered piece. It's just to give it dimension. You could ink around it or chalk around the edges and it would give it even more dimension. That was my intent at the beginning. I just forgot to do it before I put these on. If you look, this is modeled after a real light, and if you've seen the lights like this, it kind of bulges out on the bottom, but I can't create that bulge easily, so this is what we have. So we're getting through all this fun stuff. This is the fun stuff because now we already got through all the hard stuff, in my opinion. I'm just showing you could chalk it. I was trying to lightly chalk it while it was on already, but it's best to do it before. But I did do it just a little bit. Oh, and I forgot my little, I gotta add my little mirrors, even though the actual body of the mirror is just as metallic as the mirror piece. But if you're like using a dark gray or something for the actual whole mirror body, whatever, and then you put metallic in the middle, that would be cool. So now I want to be able to see the definition between the panels. So I'm just adding a little chalk around the edges. To me, it helps the panels stand out. I mean, you could always use something like a distress ink. And the reason why I don't use ink, you're going to hear this time and time again if you watch any of my videos or listen to me, because some people may not listen to me. But I just can't use distress ink all the time because I'll end up having to recut my pieces. This I can at least use an eraser on if I make a mistake. Now, I'll use distress ink every once in a while, but for me it's not forgiving. I mean, you better be ready to really distress. I'm not really... I'm trying to think of the right word. I'm not graceful. So, I'm just trying to give it a kind of a rough edge. Maybe a little dirty look too. I like browns and blues together. But I basically did that with all the panels. I'm only showing you one side of the car, but I did that with all the panels for both sides. Because this goes together the same on each side. So we're on the driver's side right now. So you're going to just slide that mirror in and stop at the fold. So it's going to fold back and attach to the back of the door panel. So we're just going to add a dot of glue there. And then fold it over. And then you're going to hold it. And this one, with the metallics, it wasn't so easy. I had to really hold on to it for a while. And then here's another. So we have the door, and then we have kind of a side panel that will go on the doors, the cab section. So we are on the driver's side right now. We're going to put these together first. Off the truck, it's easier to apply all the pressure you need. You're just going to line up that window opening. I'm going to apply pressure. Make sure it's all good and set to go. And then we're going to insert the... Make sure you have the right light. Remember, you're on the driver's side. So we're on the... So from the back, it's the left one. If you're looking at the back. We're going to do the same thing. You're going to fold it on that little cut that I have in there. And be really careful with this. I tried to make it thicker, but I didn't want to take away from the look. And then we wanted to add the the handle to the door. If you need to, something like a Xyron sticker machine would work well for a small part like that as well. Then now we're going to attach it to the sides. So when you put these on, I'm just showing you how they're just kind of going to sit, where they're going to go. But for this first one, we're going to add glue to the back, and what you're going to do is line it up on the left and bottom. So you want to line up the bottom to the bottom edge of the truck and line it up to that edge on the left. So make sure it's flush with the bottom, and then the top's going to rise above. So it's going to give it a curved look, but it rises above the top of the actual truck. And then you can apply pressure within by reaching in and rubbing on the top and reaching in. Again, those openings do help to apply pressure. So on this side panel of the bed, it's not exactly the same size, so you're just going to want to center it. I made it so it was easy to place in, but you can line up that bottom edge at least, and then center it between, making sure there's the same edge around that wheel well, or tire well. And be careful with that light, but you do want to apply pressure. So make sure you add the other side as well. I didn't show that. And then here's a little back panel to center. And I embossed it before I added it, to give it a little bit of pizzazz, I guess. And then we're going to add the back bumper. You hear my dogs barking. Center it. You can't really see it, but I have it centered. I have my hand in the way, but you want to center it. The back bumper is not as long as the front bumper, so just know the longer bumper is the one that goes in the front, because it kind of bows out in the front. So I'm using these pop-up dots that are glue dots, so it sticks. I got some at the Scrapbook Expo in Florida, and I was giving them a try. They're really sticky, so maybe I wouldn't use them for this again. But we want to center that front bumper. Then I added 2 cuts for license plates in the back and front if you want, so you can personalize them. But I'll show you that I added one. Now here are the side steps, or step sides I should say. You want to fold the tabs upwards. The curved section will be in the front. I mean the one with the slant in it will be in the front, and you can tell which side goes where, as that inside tab, that tab that juts off the side, it's going to glue to the bottom of the truck. So this is the slanted tab first, and then you'll know you have the right side because you can see that little tab goes underneath the truck. We're going to add glue to that and the second tab. It's really important you get that first tab lined up in the tab fold, that edge of that tire well, so it'll fit properly, and then apply pressure to that bottom tab. And that's the reason why I said you might want to put that on first before you put the bottom panel. And once we have both sides, you can add some personalization. I put this little cruising license plate on. It didn't come in, it comes blank, but you can put whatever you like on it. And you can put the front one as well. It's an easy way to personalize the truck. And there you go. That's the complete truck. You can add things to the back. You can add a hood ornament. I did add a hood ornament later on. I put an S on the front. There's just so many things you could do for any occasion. And I can't wait to see what others do with this file. Thank you so much for watching.